on now. I want to, kind of transition. So at what point did you move from New Orleans, which is a great city, by the way?
Mm-hmm.
I'm vegan, but I had some king cake in New Orleans. But it was vegan king cake, and it was delicious. And I did find the baby in there, right? And I
Yeah,
also
the next party.
I owe somebody else king cake now for that. But at what point did you move from New Orleans to the East Coast?
Okay. Well, I had an opportunity to move from when I was in New Orleans. I left Travelers after 13 years and went to work for a independent minority-owned agency that I gave a contract to. This gentleman he represented 7 or 8 really big companies: the Aetna at the time, the Safecos, the Hartfords, some mutual companies, and the Travelers. And so I worked for him as an agent selling small commercial packages. Or at the time, you actually had to put the package together because they didn't have the package policies that they have now, the business owner policies. So I did that for a while. But the thing that got me back to the Travelers was automation. It was a time when companies were beginning to interface using computer technology. It was very, very rudimentary. It was all done on floppy disks.
Mm-hmm.
What made it for me to move into that realm was that I could type on a typewriter. Believe it or not. I sat down at a computer with a floppy disk, and an application pulls up, which is, put your name, address, whatever, and it prints it out on a piece of paper. So I could type. So I could actually input data into the computer and spit it out in a printed form and save it on a disk. Well, they thought that was miraculous.
Wow.
It was like, you could do, how to work with a computer. No, I just know how to type.
Right.
But it gave me an entree for that office being the automation specialist. So when the computers came to the office, I was trained on how to set up the computer, how to make sure the floppy disks were in, and if there were any problems, I could fix them. And so I was trained on as an automation specialist. I would fly up to Hartford, Connecticut, spend days working with those people who were developing this new technology on the front end to deliver to the offices, which began to take the place of the fax machines, more or less, because things are being able to be transmitted.
My 19-year-old's listening to this like, what's a fax machine?
Yeah. So being an automation specialist, I came back to the Travelers in that role after being an agent, and I went to Houston, and I handled the state of Louisiana, all of Houston, and parts of East Texas up to Dallas. And I traveled those areas working with agents, implementing the new Travelers, they called it interface technology with agents. That was my job and I loved that job because I could travel. I flew on an airplane up and down the east, between New Orleans and Hartford, Connecticut all the time, attending conferences to learn more about the interface and creating the standards. So all those standards that you see now, used with technology, all was created during that time, and I was a part of that. And so that role got me into Richmond, Virginia. I was in Dallas, actually Houston, in the field office, and they said, we're going to be changing this role here, but we can offer you opportunities in Pittsburgh, Richmond, or Orlando. Well, I knew Pittsburgh was going to be too cold. I wasn't ready for that kind of weather. Right. My wife grew up in New Orleans. She said, if I can get away from the hot weather, I don't want to go to Orlando. I said, well, we go in the middle. We go to Richmond.
Richmond is right there, right in the middle.
Right there. So, and that's how we got to Richmond, and which was great because we had all the 4 seasons. She loved the weather. We were there for 27 years. My wife's an educator, so she got a job in the education system. She became, before she retired, a vice principal of an elementary school. Our two sons went to school in Virginia after leaving Houston, until they went to college. My oldest went back to New Orleans, Xavier, and my youngest
Nice.
graduated from Virginia Commonwealth University right there in Richmond.
Awesome. Okay.
And I was there for 27 years until I moved to Maryland to be closer to my two sons. One lives in Maryland, one lives in DC, and we have
Okay.
two grandkids.
Awesome. Congratulations, on the grandchildren, as
Yeah.
well. You,
There's,
you,
the thing that, that one little thing can happen that changes your whole dynamic. You
yes.
know, me taking that typing class in high school to be around the young ladies who were taking typing gave me a whole new career.
Isn't that something? How all of our experiences really over the course of our life kind of prepare us for the scenarios that we end up in.
Yes.
You just never know where the road is going to lead. It's such a divine plan.
Yes.
I want to speak a little bit about your charitable contributions, and how you talked about volunteering early in your career, and kind of transitioning into NIA and independent insurance agents. How did you start to get involved in those in the industry organizations and become not just involved but really a valuable just a contributor to those organizations?
Well, I was still working for the Travelers Insurance Company. The Travelers Insurance Company was very committed to inclusion and diversity as a company. So they actually created an operation that there were 4 African-American males. We ran the diversity, we were all diversity managers in a diversity marketplace group. Our role was to create opportunities for the company to attract agents around the country and to make sure those agents were trained properly. So we worked with a gentleman who developed a training program for incoming and existing agents on how to actually build a business plan, how to run an agency for the most part. So when that happened, that gave us exposure to community organizations who were rehabbing homes in urban areas where we would go out and look for agents. We also partnered with community groups. That partnership through community groups allowed us to be on the front end of rehabilitation of older homes. So we had what was called an urban markets approach to making sure properties were available for our agents and getting them involved in working with those community groups, providing homeowner insurance classes for those people who were buying their home for the first time. And that program still exists to this day in a lot of communities. That's why you see the home buyer credit now is on your tax return. So if you're a new home buyer, you get a home buyer, if you take a class, you get that home buyer credit on your taxes, as well as with a reduced interest rate on your purchase on your loan through a bank.
Yes.
So those programs still existed. We were doing all of that when NIA was created in 1987. Gerald Tillman, who was the founder, got to know all of the marketing reps who were out in the communities working through these companies, and his desire to create that kind of organization. He started in Ohio, Cincinnati. He had a small group of agents there called the African American Insurance Group or something. And so he started just reaching out as he learned about people and other agents in various parts of the country. He would share this idea with. And I can remember being a part of that first initial meeting, along with my compadres. Companies were interested in what he was talking about. So they would send, there was, people from the Erie, from the Hartford, from the Travelers, we all kind of descended around the Juro and his meeting. I remember going to Tampa for a meeting at the company expense just to learn what this guy was doing. And they wanted to make sure we were a part of that. So as the organization developed, I've been a part of NIA since 1987.
Wow.
And we started doing workshops and inviting our company people and around the country to join. We would go out to our companies to the various locations. We would talk about NIA to get our African American brothers and sisters to be a part of it. If there was a chapter developing in their area, we'll go out and talk to them. So the company really made it easy for us to become engaged. And of course, once you start doing that, people kind of know who you are, whether you're with a company or a state association. And we partnered with the Big I. You know, we were part of the Big I created a diversity program within its organization, and we would be a part of the. They would have a luncheon every year to recognize diversity and people of color. So I got to know the people in the Big I, and then living in the state of Virginia, you know, they reached out looking for a board member. I said, I'll be a board member, you know, and so that was helpful because then it helped build educational programs in and around Richmond, the state of Virginia. And so that's how I got to do property and casualty teaching, because part of their arm was teaching property and casualty insurance for agents and their staff. And they also would do teaching for licensing purposes, both property and casualty and life insurance and health. So those things enabled the individuals to get licensed. So that's kind of how I got into doing that. And I was always involved in going to high schools through the Invest. The Big I had an Invest program for kids where you go out and you talk about insurance, how insurance works, and being part of that process. So I've been involved in this business from beginning to the end on a lot of levels.
So how important do you feel it would be for a new agent, because this is called You Should Get a License, right? But it's not just getting the license, it's what you do with it after you have it, and how you use the opportunity.
Yeah.
How important do you feel it is for agents or other professionals to get involved in the various agents associations or trade organizations that are out there?
I tell you what, I think it's very important because although when you walk into a room, even to this day, you might be one of maybe 6 or 7 persons of color. But I think it's very important because these organizations need to know and understand how you think. We all don't think the same. We're not a monolithic group of people, as people of color are. People sometimes they think we all want to do the same kinds of things. But it's not. It's important to be a part of those organizations and develop your leadership, develop your knowledge of the business. And that is political too. And the legislation that comes out of states and out of the federal government that impacts the way you do business. So I think it's important from that standpoint that we understand that process and help develop leadership and get to know people who don't look like us, because they're the ones who kind of make things happen. And they look forward to the opportunity to sit down and understand how you run your business or what they can share with you. And you can learn a lot just from sitting across a table or even playing golf on the golf course. Deals are made. You can participate. If they're looking for a minority agent to participate in a deal with a business or a government-run opportunity, they need minority participation. So I think it's very important that people of color become part of an association, whether it's of their own or with the majority, and you can be part of both.
Absolutely.
And there's no exclusion for them to be a part of minority organizations. There's no exclusions at all. So we have. If you look at NIA, I don't know if there's any quote members, but there are member companies that contribute to that organization, and their folks come out to meetings and they know of the organization. So I think it gives you a wide range of opportunities and connections. Again, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Right. About relationship. And this is a relationship driven business.
It is.
It is, right?
Oh, I tell you that you got to be able to communicate and relate to people. You may not like, the person you're sitting next to, but you can do business with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you trust them, obviously.
Yeah.
But it is a relationship. Even with your clients, it's a relationship. Your client needs to know that you think about them.
Absolutely.
If you're gonna keep them, they like to know that you're thinking about them, you're sending them something, you're calling them, you're asking about doing a review.
Yes.
That's all those elements of just staying in touch is critical to this business.
That's right. And that's how massive success is accomplished. And you
Yes, I believe it.
End up having an extensive 40-year career in different environments, doing different things and really excelling, being at the top of your game. When I think of you, Mr. Allen, I think of someone who's kind of reach the pinnacle in their field, has really had kind of getting to the top and really touched and impacted people along the way at substantial levels.